Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. It cuts, but it's supposed to be doing something other than cutting. It's also supposed to orbit. Now this knob, according to the manual, when you set this in auto scroll, that lets you move this back and forth. But I have a feeling that that is when you have it turned around facing the other direction. We'll remove the blade, which seems to work. I mean, I had my doubts whether it was going to knock my hand off, but it does seem to work. Take the blade out. Let's see, we got this in auto scroll. Yes, I can turn that around. It means I can put this blade back in that way and then be able to spin this about 180. When I bring this back to orbital, this is 0 orbit. Looks like we're stuck here. It doesn't want to orbit when it's in that direction. Have to take the blade out, spin it around, and I can reinsert the blade and be able to turn it. So evidently the orbiting is only when the blade is in the rear position. I can't find a manual on this that tells me how it actually operates. There's newer manuals, but this one was built in 1998 and I haven't found a manual yet. Doesn't mean I won't, but I haven't found it yet. I did find a schematic that tells me that there's a gear drive up in here, and from the look of it I would imagine it needs some grease. So with the cord unplugged, I'm going to take this housing apart. Kind of a cool little thing here. We have a spot to put your blades, but this blade is too long to fit the spot, so that blade is going to be in the oddities bin. Okay, this has torque screws, which I always like because torque screws are a lot easier to work with. I just have to change out the bit. Let's see, which one would it be? This one? It's a little loose. And that's the one. This little magnetic tray that I picked up at Harbor Freight is actually kind of handy because things don't fall out. I like to work with a tool sitting on a cloth. A towel like this works pretty good. This is an old kitchen towel. Once they get stained up, you don't want them in the kitchen, but the workshop doesn't care. At least I don't care, and I'm the workshop. pull the shoe off before I split the housing. That way I don't have this shoe trying to wedge the housing open while I'm taking it apart. The cloth has a couple of advantages. One of them is things don't bounce as far if they drop onto the cloth. And as time goes on, you'll find that having things not bounce off is a good thing. Oh, and there's another thing I just discovered. This has more than one place you can put the blade. You can put it in the front. I can do this. That way, with it set on scroll, it's going to just scroll around the center. That's going to give you 360. That's a handy thing. Okay, do I have all the screws out? This one is loose but not out. That's okay. Now to separate the housing. Works quite well if you grab a hold of the cord. It gives you something to push against. Doesn't work on everything, but on this particular one it seems to be working just like I expected. There, now we lift off the cover, being careful not to drop the screws, because they will fly off and then you're going to be chasing them. Put them in the magnetic tray. Now they are pretty much there until you're done. Okay. Now we can see that there's grease in here. This is the knob that lets you spin it around. That's the trigger. It's a pretty simple device, not a whole lot to it. Orbiting. Orbiting makes me think that it's supposed to be able to cycle back and forth. Now I don't see anything in here that would allow that. Wonder what that plate does. Okay, this allows it to drive back and forth. Even while this is sliding up and down, you can still move this knob. Ah. So this slides up and down too. What would that push against to allow it to orbit? Let's see, the orbiting is accomplished by this slide block moving up and down. And I think it's supposed to cause this piece to wobble like this. Now there must be something in here that causes this to come back like that, because as I turn this lever on the other side, which is the level that determines the orbit, that causes that to no longer wobble. Everything appears to be moving okay, but what it's not doing, there's nothing causing this to go down. It's allowing it to. There's nothing causing it to move. Nothing really holding it in position either, other than this slide block here, which is a piece of felt. No, it's kind of a foam rubber thing. So we got some heavy, I would call it extreme pressure grease, that is packed in here around this gear. It's no longer on the gear, it's just packed in around it. And I would imagine you need extreme pressure grease so that it doesn't flow out. But this grease is too heavy. It's gotten old and lost the volatiles. "22-year-old grease." With 22 years of gunk in it, it's more like caulk. It's no longer that slippery. Kind of a pasty consistency. And this grease is too liquid. It's going to run right out of the gun, or out of the saw. So I need to get some heavier grease. Something that's going to stay in place and perform the function without being too stiff. lift this out of here again. You can see this is packed full of the same grease. And it's very, very stiff. So this has been running pretty much dry. For a long, long time. There's little or no grease on the gears. And we can see where the cam follower has been grinding away on this surface for quite a while. Now we'll load all this stuff into the ultrasonic cleaner, and we'll come back after it's nicely cleaned up and check and see if we can get this thing back together again. Oh, and I gotta go get some grease. The grease that I have in-house just isn't the right stuff. In the meantime, if you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the US or 16 in the European Union, without the express written permission of the parents or legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.